Hello, hello, hello. Welcome on in, all of you lovely, beautiful viewers. Today, I have a little bit of a slightly different video for you guys. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the live stream that happened for the upcoming New Year's update of Goddess of Victory Nikke. Yeah, welcome on in, everyone. Hopefully, all of you out there are doing fantastic. I honestly feel like right now, as I am recording this little video here, I feel like there's a lot of things happening in the gacha game world, right? I feel like basically every single gacha game that is out there, they are, having some sort of big, very like luxurious event or occasion for the upcoming new year of 2025. I know that Genshin Impact, we have version 5.3 coming out, Wuthering Waves has version 2.0 coming out, and as you can see here, Goddess of Victory Nikke, another gacha game that I play on a daily basis, is going to be having their New Year's update releasing very, very soon here. For anyone out there who does not really know that much about Nikke, basically Nikke is a gacha game that started off as a very simple mobile game, and then eventually it transformed and it was released as a PC client as well. And I would say, honestly, that Nikke as a game is probably the number one most consistent, quality gacha game that exists out there, which I really, really, truly enjoy. I think that it's very interesting. I think that, with gacha games such as Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves or Honkai Star Rail, it feels like there are certain version updates, certain patches, where there's nothing really happening during those particular updates, right? And I consider those to be, filler updates or filler patches, right? And during those filler patches, I personally feel very, very, very bored, and I feel basically zero motivation, zero desire to play those games. I feel like I kind of just want to speed time up and get to the point where the next big major content update releases. Um, with that being said, Goddess of Victory Nikke, I think, is a game that does not really suffer too badly from filler updates and filler patches. I mean, don't get me wrong, it definitely does have filler patches every once in a while. However, I think that the big difference between Goddess of Victory Nikke and something like Genshin Impact is that with Nikke, even during the time periods where it is considered a filler update and there's not really much happening, I feel like the daily activities, the daily grind that you can do in the game, at least to me, it feels very satisfying and it feels very rewarding. It feels very enjoyable, very fun. And so, I love playing Nikke on a daily basis, logging into the game and grinding it and improving my account, right? It's a lot of fun. I would legitimately honestly say that if you are interested in, potentially trying out a gacha that is quite different from the vibe of Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves and Honkai Star Rail and whatnot, I think that Nikke is actually, truthfully, a really good game, outside of any sort of jokes or memes that Nikke is known for, right? So Nikke, as I mentioned here, they're going to be having a New Year's update at the very beginning of January, just like how Genshin and Wuthering Waves and very likely Honkai Star Rail are going to be having their, 2025 beginning of the year updates. So this right here is the live stream for Nikke, and we're going to be taking a look at the live stream today. We're going to be basically checking out what major content Nikke is going to be releasing, and I'm going to be talking all about it. I'm going to be reacting to it. I'm going to be sharing any thoughts, any opinions that I have on it. It feels a little bit weird because, for those who don't know, basically yesterday, right? Yesterday I did a Twitch live stream, and during that live stream, I talked about the Wuthering Waves version 2.0 live stream, and then I also talked about a completely unrelated subject, which was the 2024 Game Awards. But I talked for a very long time, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, on Friday, which was not yesterday, but it was like 2 or 3 days ago from now, I did a Twitch live stream as well, and I talked all about the Genshin Impact version 5.3 live stream. So yeah, I feel like, these past couple of days, I've been just like reviewing and reacting to multiple different live streams back to back to back, and it is something that I find to be just a tiny little bit exhausting, a little bit tiring. But today, I am not doing a live stream. I'm actually recording this little video offline, just because today is not a day that I'm scheduled to stream, and I kind of need to take a break from going live and kind of trying to put on a good live stream experience. Um, so we are going to be, basically just skimming through this live stream here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like focus on the most important parts of the live stream, and I'm going to, showcase it. I'm going to talk about it. A lot of the other kind of, I would say, less important or less significant information that is announced in this live stream, I'm going to be skipping over it, right? So yeah, that is what we're going to be doing today. And hopefully I am, praying that I can keep this particular review or this reaction type video as short as humanly possible. But yeah, let's take a look at here, shall we? I will be kind of like using my mouse to sort of skim through the entire live stream and skip over to the important parts. And then one thing that I do want to very quickly mention to you guys who are watching this video is that I'm currently watching the Japanese live stream just because I play the game in Japanese and I love, the Japanese voice acting. I love the Japanese dialogue, right? And to be completely honest, I am not a major fan of, the English voice acting for Nikke. Just like I'm not really a big major, fan of normal English voiceover for any video game or any, Asian media, right? Whether it's a TV show, movie, video game, anime, anything, right? So I prefer Japanese, and that is why we are checking out the Japanese live stream here. Okay, let's see. What do they talk about? Let's see here. This is all written in Japanese text, so we won't be able to understand exactly what they're talking about. I actually wonder, do they have, let me see, do they have, like, English subtitles, auto-translate? Let me see here. They might not. I mean, even if they don't, though, I think we'll be able to, like, react to the most important parts of this live stream without really, needing to have a translation for what is going on. So this stuff right here, this stuff is basically just kind of regular, basic giveaway type stuff that happens during, like, a live stream, right? Okay, so it looks like here is where we get into sort of like the first reveal of the live stream, and I believe that they're going to start playing the video not too long after this point. So let's go ahead and play the live stream and watch what they reveal here. I'm also going to make sure that the quality is 1080p. There we go, and let's play.
あれ？映像がプレゼントってことかしら。一緒に見てみる？生きる意味なんてないと思ってた。一緒にいた仲間は皆死ぬかおかしくなり、私だけが生き残った。私は空っぽの何も入っていないただの抜け殻だった。そしてあなたに出会った。全てを持っていたあなたに、あなたになりたかった。だけど道に迷い、怒り、諦めた。でも今は私と一緒にいてくれる、私を定義してくれる仲間がいる。だから見守っていて、私の友、私の師匠、私の理想、あなたから受け継いだものと一緒に私は満たされて、そしていつか完成するはずだから。
Nice, 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 nice. Okay, let me pause the video here, and I'm gonna take a moment to explain a little bit of this because obviously anybody who does not play Nikke and is not familiar with this game, you guys probably won't have the context here. So basically, this character that you see on the screen here, her name is Rappi, right? And she is basically the main character of this game, right? So, you as the player, you play this character in the world of Nikke, you play this commander, right? And he's a military commander, and he has like a squadron of Nikkes, right? Which are these sort of humanoid, sort of robot characters, right? And these like humanoid robots, they fight on behalf of humanity. They protect humanity and basically take down any enemies, any, monsters or whatever that are threatening humanity, right? So Rappi is a Nikke. She is a humanoid robot. And basically, she is I would say like the main number one Nikke that this game sort of focuses on, right? She is the protagonist Nikke that is a part of your squadron. You are her military commander. The very like interesting thing about Rappi, and the reason why this particular New Year's live stream is quite significant, is that in the game of Nikke, right, the character of Rappi is basically a what is called an SR character, right? And that means that, if you think about it in terms of like Genshin Impact or, Honkai Star Rail or even like Wuthering Waves, right? Any like very standard typical gacha game, there are basically multiple different rarities, multiple different types of Nikkes. And so the highest rarity is SSR in this game, and then the next rarity is SR, and then you have the R rarity, right? So those are the three different tiers, right? SSR is basically the equivalent of a 5-star in Genshin or Honkai or Wuthering Waves, and then SR would be the equivalent of a 4-star, and then R characters are the equivalent of a 3-star or lower rarity character in a very standard typical gacha game, right? So as I said, the very interesting thing about Rapi as a character in Nikke is that before this live stream, before New Year's 2025, there exists only one version of Rapi in the game, and she is an SR character, basically the equivalent of a 4-star, right? And so what that means is that, when you play Nikke and you get better at the game, you improve your account, and you slowly become more and more powerful, you become more of a veteran player, essentially nobody uses Rapi because she is an SR character, right? So what has happened here is that basically there is a different character in the game who is an SSR, right? A 5-star character by the name of Red Hood. And Red Hood basically got to meet Rapi, or vice versa, I should say. Rapi got to meet Red Hood, and they sort of became, I guess, friends is one way to describe it. Or, another way to describe it would be that, Rapi respected and admired Red Hood as if she was a mentor, as if she was someone who, was like a teacher, and an icon for Rapi, right? And in the world of Nikke, Red Hood was a part of a very, very, very famous and popular squad of Nikkes, and Red Hood is a part of a group of the most powerful Nikkes to exist in the universe, right? She was an incredible, amazing Nikke in terms of like her strength in the lore, in the story, right? Eventually what happened is that Red Hood, she ends up basically no longer existing, right? Because she, imagine that Red Hood is from a super duper duper old generation of Nikkes, and they no longer are active, right? They no longer are operational. And so, essentially, what ends up happening is that Rapi, through this like long journey and this, character development, this growth, she learns that, she is a character that is sort of intended to take on the mantle of Red Hood and to inherit Red Hood's values in life and her legacy, so to speak, right? So yeah, basically what this is showing right here is that finally Rapi has, successfully been able to grab a hold of, the incredible, amazing legacy that Red Hood left behind, and Rapi is able to use that legacy to basically like transform herself into a newer version of herself, a better version of herself, right? And in terms of the game, in terms of Nikke, right? What is happening in this live stream, this announcement here, is that they're saying we are going to be releasing an SSR version of Rapi, a 5-star version of Rapi, right? And so this right here is basically the number one kind of like poster brand new character that is being released with the New Year's update, right? This is the number one most like exciting, most hype character that they are marketing and advertising and saying like, hey guys, check this out, brand new SSR character, go and pull for her, go and try to obtain her, right? So this is a very, very big announcement, and I think this right here is, intended to be one of the main highlights of the New Year's update. However, there is going to be plenty more stuff that they talk about after this point in the live stream, and a lot of the other stuff that they talk about is quite interesting, and so I do want to go over it, and I want to, share my thoughts and my opinions about it. So let's see. It looks like they are doing a lot of chit-chatting. Okay, and then here, basically, this is just giving some information about the way that Rapi works. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that if you take a look at the English live stream for the New Year's update, I think that it's all translated into English. I could be wrong. But basically what this is doing is it's talking about how Rapi is going to work. Basically, if you take a look here, this is her skill number 1, this is skill number 2, and then this is her burst attack, right? And then this right here is talking kind of about her special ability, her like passive, so to speak, right? Obviously, if you don't play Nikke and you're unfamiliar with the game, I don't think any of this is going to make any sense to anyone out there. But if you do play Nikke, you will very clearly understand the information that is being portrayed here, obviously assuming that it is written in English and it's something that you don't have to translate, right? But basically, if I were to summarize the entire, kit, the entire build of SSR Rapi, this is essentially what it boils down to, right? Number one is that Rapi is basically the very first character in the game that has 2 different manufacturer classes, right? So essentially in Nikke, the characters are, categorized into different manufacturer classes based on which company in the universe of Nikke, which company was the one that created them, right? Because there are multiple different companies or corporations that build Nikkes and they create them. And so certain companies will have select few Nikkes that they own and they claim, right? And then, they will be deployed on missions depending on, basically their skill set and what they're good at, right? So in the game of Nikke, basically there is like certain content, for example, where certain manufacturers are more beneficial to use. And, for example, there is one specific piece of content, which is called the manufacturer towers. And with those towers, right, essentially you are basically limited to creating a team of Nikkes that are only one manufacturer, right? So, I'll list them off and I'll give you examples here, right? There is the Tetra Tower, where you can only use Nikkes that are manufactured by Tetra. Then you have the Elysion Tower, you have the Missilis Tower, and you have the Pilgrim Tower, right? And so each of these different towers, you are restricted and limited to only using Nikkes from that specific manufacturer in order to clear the content. And, the tower, content, it's basically like, imagine an actual real tower in real life. You start at the very bottom at, level 1, and then you try to climb as high as you can in the tower. You try to go level by level and defeat the different stages as high as you can possibly go, right? That is the entirety of that game mode. So yeah, there's certain content where like manufacturers are, specified, and like there's certain content where certain manufacturers are really good for it and others are not so great. There might be certain content where it is very restrictive and limited, where you can only use certain manufacturers, right? And Rapi is the very first character that has two different manufacturer types. She is Elysion, but also at the same time she is known as a pilgrim, right? And the reason why is because, one, the Elysion company is the one that built Rapi, and then because Rapi inherited Red Hood's legacy and kind of like took on sort of like her role as a sort of like Red Hood 2.0, so to speak. Because Red Hood was a pilgrim, right? Rapi now has that sort of identification as well, right? So that's, one very big thing about her kit here. Another really, 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 big thing about Rapi is that, basically in the game of Nikke, every single Nikke that exists, they have a burst number, right? They have a burst number. So in the game of Nikke, there are burst 1, burst 2, and burst 3, right? And so what that means is that when you are using Nikkes and you are doing combat, you are fighting the enemies, which are called raptures, right? You basically have a required order of when you can use burst attacks from your characters, right? So the way that it works is that essentially you need to have, at bare minimum on a team, you need to have at least one burst 1 character, one burst 2 character, and one burst 3 character, right? That way, what you can do is when their burst is ready, when it's active, you activate burst 1, then burst 2, then burst 3 in that order. That's how it works, right? And so, essentially, team building in this game is an important aspect, right? You need to know what bursts do you want to take with you and which characters synergize well with each other, right? So, that is the very simple explanation of the bursting system, right? Where you have burst 1, burst 2, burst 3 Nikkes, and they are used in that order, from 1 to 2 to 3, right? With Rapi, SSR Rapi, she is a character that actually has two different burst types. She can be activated as a burst 1 Nikke, where whenever your entire team of characters has their burst available, she will activate her burst first, and then your other Nikkes will then follow up and activate their bursts, right? So that is one possible scenario. Or on the flip side, you can actually activate Rapi as a burst 3 character, right? And in Nikke, there is only one other character that has a system like this, and that is Red Hood. The character of Red Hood is a very, very unique and special character where Red Hood can activate her burst at any time. It'll be either burst 1 or burst 2 or burst 3, right? Any one of those bursts, Red Hood can use it. Now, the, kind of like very important thing to keep in mind is that basically, let's say that you activate, let's talk about Red Hood. You activate Red Hood burst 1, right? When you activate that burst, Red Hood will go on a cooldown. And the thing is that, like, Red Hood, she has this ability where the first time that you activate her burst, she decreases the cooldown of her burst so that you can activate it a second time very quickly, right? So if you wanted to, you could activate Red Hood for burst 1 and burst 2, right? Now, the way that it works, though, is that with Red Hood, that ability only lasts one time, right? So when you activate her burst for the first time, she lowers her burst cooldown, and it's really beneficial, and it's like, hell yeah, that's awesome. You can activate it again, right? But after that one singular occurrence where she lowers her cooldown to be able to use the burst again, her burst then basically stays at the same cooldown length for the rest of the fight. And the cooldown length is 40 seconds. So essentially, to kind of simplify it, when you are using Red Hood on a team, I would say that probably 98 or 99% of the time, you are only ever using Red Hood as a burst 3. And the reason being is that, when you use her as a burst 3, you are able to essentially do a full burst cycle, and then what happens is you do a second full burst cycle, and during the second full burst cycle you will have a different burst 3 character that can activate their burst instead of Red Hood. And so essentially with Red Hood you would do one full burst cycle, use Red Hood's burst, then the next one you would not use it, and then the one after that you would use Red Hood's burst again. So it's like kind of between the full burst cycles you are alternating, right? There are occasions where you actually do kind of want to use Red Hood as a burst 1, because what happens is that, you use Red Hood burst 1, she will give your entire team a massive, impressive attack boost, and will buff your entire team, buff the damage that they deal. So you can use her as a burst 1, but the thing is that, if you continuously use her as a burst 1, her burst cooldown length will eventually reach the point where it's 40 seconds, and you are unable to use her as a burst 1 for every single full burst rotation, which is, not really ideal, right? In that scenario, you would definitely want to have a second burst 1 character on your team to alternate between Red Hood and the second burst 1 character, right? So all of that being said, right, let's get back to Rappy here. Let's talk about SSR Rappy. She is basically going to work the exact same way, I think, except that she is not able to be activated for Burst 2. It's only Burst 1 and Burst 3 is what she is allowed to do, which is not really that, bad. Like, it's not a downgrade, it's not something worse, right? The reason why is because, typically speaking, Burst 2 Nikkes in the game are just simply known as support characters, right? They will do things like, for example, they might provide damage mitigation, and they will, tank some damage for your team, or they might, for example, heal your teammates, or they might potentially buff your attack damage, right, for your team. But, Burst 2 Nikkes are not really primary damage dealers, right? They are mainly supports. So, SSR Rappy not being allowed to use Burst 2, that is not at all a bad thing. That's not a negative thing in any way whatsoever, right? So yeah, Rappy is a very, very, very special character, where she is kind of sort of a little bit similar to Red Hood, but she has her own special unique things that do make her very valuable as well. She is not a character that is meant to replace Red Hood, and I think that there is 100% a benefit of using both Red Hood and Rappy, in clearing whatever content that you want to clear in the game, right? Assuming that the content you're clearing does not require a specific team setup and specific characters and whatnot. So yeah. But basically, the long story short about this entire description here on the screen is that Rappy is a very unique character, and she's a very powerful character as well. So yeah, and then I think if we keep playing the video, it'll show like a very brief animation of Rappy in combat, right? Yep, so there we go. Basically, what that animation was essentially just showing is two things, right? Number one, it was showing off the fact that Rappy is a machine gun user, right? In the game of Nikke, there are Nikkes that use different weapon types, right? There are snipers, there are rocket launchers, there are machine gun users, there are assault rifle users, there are submachine gun users, right? And so Rappy is a machine gun user, meaning that she has a gun that has a lot of ammo. It has a crap ton of ammo in it, and it is one where basically I think the focus of the character is to just shoot out as many bullets as possible and just like slam the raptures with bullets, just a complete hailstorm of bullets, right? So that was one thing. And then the other thing is it was just very briefly showing what it looks like when you activate Rappy's burst attack. There's like a very, unique animation, kind of like cutscene thingy that shows up on the screen. But yeah. So there's that. Rappy is looking like a very, very, very nice character, which is really awesome. Let's continue the video and let's see what, they showcase for Rappy. Yeah, okay. So this, page here, I actually do have basically an image of this page. I have the English version of it, you know what I mean? So I know what this says when it's like translated, right? Let me see here. So I'm gonna like take a look at the image on my other monitor, and I'm gonna like, kind of check and see what the important notes are on it. Okay, yeah. So essentially what this says here is that Rappy is going to be available on her own special unique banner that you can pull for her, and she will have a 1% drop rate, which is not really that great. Basically in Nikke, a lot of the like super powerful characters, especially the pilgrim characters in the game, they have a 1% drop rate. And for regular normal SSR characters that are not super duper special, they have a 2% drop rate, right? It does say that, after Rappy's banner disappears, she will be added to the permanent standard banner, but there's only a 0.5% chance of pulling Rappy. Like it's a 0.5% probability that is shared with other pilgrims, right? So what that means is that, essentially I think that every single pilgrim that exists in the banner, you have like a 0.5% chance of pulling one of them. And, what that means is that as more pilgrims and as more characters get added to the permanent standard banner, it dilutes the percentages a lot more, and it makes it harder to pull a very specific character that you want, right? So there's that, okay? It also says here that, basically Rapi, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Rapi is a character that instead of being only classified as a pilgrim, manufacturer character, she is both a pilgrim and she is also Elysion, right? Which is not at all bad news. That is not at all, a bad thing. That's actually a really, really cool, unique thing that they are introducing with her character, right? The next, the next point, or like the third, sentence here, it is not really that important. It's not something that's worth really talking about, so we'll skip over it. I think that only if you play Nikke that, this information will pertain to you and you will care about it. But I think that for anyone else, right, it's not really super duper important, right? So the very last kind of bullet points on this list, it says here that basically, so in this game, right, in Nikke, there's this concept that exists, which is called a mold, right? It's called like an SSR mold or an SR mold, right? And so what these things are, right? Essentially, a mold is this item where you can collect it, and it looks kind of like a, imagine like a crystal or a diamond, right? And so you collect this mold, and what happens is when you collect 50 of these molds, you can basically like redeem or exchange this mold for the possibility of getting a character, right? So if you, you know, um, use like an SR mold, right? You have a chance of getting maybe an SR character, or if you're very, very, very extremely lucky, you may also be able to get an SSR character from an SR mold, right? And then with the SSR molds, right, it's the exact same thing where you hypothetically, right, theoretically, you have a good chance of pulling an SSR character from a mold, or you may get very unlucky and you may end up pulling an SR character instead, right? So it's kind of like a an RNG sort of like not really gotcha item. I mean, I suppose you could classify it as a gotcha item, but it's one where essentially what you do is by completing content in the game, by, progressing through things like, for example, the manufacturer tower, you slowly over time collect these molds. And another, way that you can get these molds is basically every time that you pull on a banner that is in the game, right? You spend your gems, your resources to pull on a banner, you obtain this currency, right? It's a special currency where it's basically like a silver coin and it has the symbol of like DNA on the coin, right? It has like a double helix, right? And I believe the name of the currency is called Body Label, if I'm not mistaken. You can actually take the Body Label and go into a shop and exchange it for molds, but you can only exchange it for regular plain SSR molds because in Nikke there is actually multiple different types of molds, right? You have the plain old regular SSR mold, you have the Tetra SSR mold, you have the Elysion SSR mold, you have the Pilgrim mold, you have the Mesilis mold, right? So each manufacturer also has their own mold that you can earn by progressing through the manufacturer towers. So that is basically how the mold system works, where you slowly over time, gradually you collect these molds. When you get 50 of them, you can exchange them and maybe possibly get an SSR character, right? If you're lucky. So this very last like bullet point here, it says that the Pilgrim mold, which exists in the game, right? It will be updated. And it will be updated to include characters like Rapi, and Rapi is, her type of character is called an over-spec Nikke. Over-spec, that's what they're calling her. And so from now on, when this, update drops, over-spec Nikkes that exist in the game, they will be, able to be pulled from the Pilgrim mold, right? Also, not only that, but with Rapi being a character that is both Elysion and Pilgrim, it means that, when it comes to the manufacturer towers, Rapi is a character that can be used in the Pilgrim Tower and also in the Elysion Tower. It is a possible thing for her to be able to do, which is really, really big because, if you are unfamiliar with Nikke, one thing that is very interesting to take note of is that, so far in the game of Nikke, I think that it's been a little bit unfair because there have been quite a few good Mesilis and Tetra and Pilgrim Nikkes that have come out, some very powerful ones. And so what that means is that when it comes to the manufacturer tower, it is a lot easier to progress through Mesilis, Tetra, and Pilgrim towers and get, to a higher stage, a higher level compared to Elysion. I think that in the game of Nikke, the Elysion characters, they are the weakest manufacturer in the game right now. They don't have a lot of good characters that you can use for Elysion content. So having a character like Rapi, being available for the Elysion Tower is huge. It is very, very big news, right? So yeah. Basically that is what the final bullet point here, says in English if you go and check out the translated version of it, right? Let's keep going then. Let's keep playing the video, see if they show off anything else here.
本当に火力が高いです。ついにあの姿のラピが来るのね。ずいぶん待たされた甲斐があったんじゃない？
Okay, so here we've got some nice visuals of what Rappi looks like in the game. I will say I really, really like the design of basically her waist down, right? I really love these like leggings or whatever they're known as, stockings. I don't know what the proper term is, but you know, I am someone very admittedly, I really love and enjoy thighs. I think that thighs are very beautiful, very pretty, and I love thick thighs. So, you know, being able to see this design on a character like Rappi, it's very, very pleasing, very, very lovely, you know, of a design, and I'm a big fan of it. So really, really nice stuff, especially because I feel like Rappi with her like regular, you know, SR kind of like 4-star version, right? Her 4-star version, I think that there was only one like alternative costume that she had, which was good, and that was a swimsuit costume, and it was like a one-piece swimsuit costume, and it was very pretty, very beautiful. But like if you take a look at the SR Rappi's, you know, default outfit, you know, that you when you start playing the game, that is her regular basic outfit that she wears all the time. Her regular basic default outfit is kind of a little bit bland, a little bit boring, not really anything fancy being shown off, you know. But yeah. Okay, so I don't think that they show off anything else from, you know, Rappi and from her character. Um, okay, so here we get to, I think, the second major announcement of this live stream. Let's take a look here. Okay, so this right here is huge. This is insanely good stuff, right? For those of you out there who don't play Nikke and are unfamiliar with the game, this character right here, the name of this character is, I believe, Black Shadow Scarlet, right? I believe that is her name. And basically, Black Shadow Scarlet is a different version of a pre-existing character in the game. There is basically an original version of Scarlet that exists, and this version right here, the Black Shadow, you know, alternative, this is essentially a younger version of the Scarlet that exists in the game, right? The original Scarlet. This is what she looked like, you know, let's say hypothetically 50 years ago or 100 years ago or whatever, right? So Black Shadow Scarlet is a very, very, very powerful character in the game. You can see that she is a pilgrim character, and you know, if you speak to any veteran Nikke player who is very familiar with the game and you know, who constantly plays it and keeps up to date with everything, they will tell you that Black Shadow Scarlet is one of the most powerful, one of the best pilgrim characters to have on your account. She is so extremely valuable, and I think that anybody and everybody who plays Nikke should have Black Shadow Scarlet on their account, right? You know, the fun fact about me that you know, those of you out there may not know is the original Scarlet character as well as Black Shadow Scarlet, they are my two favorite characters in the entire game. And the main reason why is that, you know, every single Nikke in this game, they use a gun, right? Their primary weapon is a gun. It could be a machine gun, it could be a assault rifle, right? It could be a rocket launcher or a sniper or whatever, right? Basically all of the Nikkes, they use guns as their main weapon, right? Scarlet, on the other hand, is a very unique special Nikke where her primary weapon is actually a sword. So she has a sword that she uses to cut, you know, raptures and take down enemies, right? And she is extremely, extremely powerful because basically, if you play through the game and you learn about sort of the story of the game and the story of Scarlet, Scarlet is one of the last remaining Nikkes that were a part of a very, you know, special, unique squad known as the Melee Squad, right? Essentially, the in the world of Nikke, the humans who, you know, were basically, I guess, like in charge of the military, they were like the military leaders and whatever, they wanted to see if they could design some Nikkes that would do melee combat against the Raptures and succeed, if they would win, right? And so they created this, like, you know, special task force, this melee squad, and they were testing out the different Nikkes to see, okay, how powerful are they? Are they able to survive? Are they struggling without the use of a gun? That sort of thing. And Scarlet is one of the, like, last remaining melee squad members, so she is, like, basically, I think the only or one of the only Nikkes that exist in the game that uses a weapon that is not a gun, right? And so yeah, I really, really love Scarlet's design. I really love, you know, her aesthetic. I love basically her entire character, right, as a whole. I love her personality and everything. And so Scarlet is my number one favorite Nikke of all time. And so, you know, as you can see here, right, it says on the screen that this is a re-pickup, basically a rerun banner, because Shadow Scarlet, she was actually released during New Year's of 2023. Or not 2023, I think. Maybe it was New Year's 2024. So she was released basically during the last New Year's event, and when she came out, I was so excited and I was so ready for her arrival that I ended up pulling for her. And not only that, but I decided to get multiple copies of her because in Nikke there's a thing that exists which is called limit breaking, right? And what that means is that if you pull a character, you get one copy of a character, and then you get 3 additional copies, which means 4 total copies. You are able to do something which is called max limit breaking a character. What it essentially does is it increases those characters, their stats, right? So it makes them stronger, of course. And not only that, but when you max limit break a character, you unlock a unique wallpaper, like a background wallpaper in the game for that character. So I decided to do that for Scarlet, and I love her a lot. She is on my account right now. She is, I think, one of my top 3 most powerful Nikkes on my account. She is very, very, very good. So this is big news right here, and I'm very happy about it. I will say I am very relieved. I'm very, happy that I do not have to pull for her. And I can save my resources for Rappy and for, any other characters that come out after Rappy, right? But yeah, for anyone out there who does not own Black Shadow Scarlet, or I would say anyone who does not have her max limit broken, I would highly recommend pulling on this Pilgrim banner right here, without a doubt. So yeah, this is big news for sure. Okay. What else do they showcase here? So they do have here like a very short, showcase of basically alternative costumes, alternative skins for pre-existing characters. So I'll show them off, but I'm not really going to talk too much about them just because, a lot of the time these alternative skins, they are ones that you have to pay money for, right? They are not free. I think that like a lot of the time, I would say that, there's maybe only one, alternative costume, alternative skin that is given out for free, and it is not the like best looking and best designed skin, right? The ones that are like really, 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 pretty and very unique and very special and whatever, those skins are reserved and, you have to pay for them. They're not free, right? So yeah, basically I think like, I would say at least, 2 out of the 3, I believe that there's 3 total skins that are going to be shown here. At least 2 of them, if not all 3 of them, are very likely going to be paid skins that you have to swipe your credit card for. And it's not something that I care about. It's not something that I will ever spend money on, just because I don't feel like it's really worth it at all. The skins in Nikke are quite expensive, right? There are some skins in the game where you pay $20 and you get the skin. And then there are other skins in the game, the ones that are more rare, more special, more unique, and usually higher quality. They actually cost a total of $60 for one skin. And it does not really feel like it is that valuable. It does not feel like it is, worth that kind of price tag. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at what they showcase here.
学生としての最後のお祭りになればいいな。大人になるまで待っててほしいの。先生、こっちこっち。ここ面白いものいっぱいありますよ。私のお祭りを返せ。2年生になったので後輩のお手本となるように頑張ります。努力の成果を味わってください。
Okay. So the one thing that I will say about these skins, right? I'm not going to talk too long about them, but basically, for anyone out there who is a little bit unfamiliar with the game and is not really very familiar with the way that costumes work in Nikke, right? So the first costume that was shown was for a character by the name of Naga, right? And that costume is going to be one that you have to purchase, you have to pay for it, and it's going to be $60. And the way that you can tell, even though they don't like explicitly say it in the live stream, is that basically the animation, the cutscene that plays whenever you buy that skin and you use Naga's burst, it is a special, unique animation that is, basically connected to that costume. So you can only have that unique animation if you buy the costume, right? And any costume that has a very special animation like that is one that is guaranteed to cost $60, right? That's how it's always been in the game. The other 2 characters, there was a character by the name of Ein and another character by the name of Zwei. Both of them, they have, their own special costumes, but the animation of their burst attack did not change. It was the exact same as their default outfit, which means that those 2 costumes are very likely going to be $20, right? And as I mentioned, I do not feel like any of those costumes are worth the price tag at all. I would not pay $20 for those costumes. I would not pay $60 for the Naga costume, right? It's just, yeah, it's way too overpriced, in my personal opinion. So yeah, that is what I'll say about those costumes. That is, kind of like what players can expect to see when they boot up the New Year's update and they see these costumes in the game, right? So yeah. I don't really care about costume stuff. I don't really care about stuff that is pay to win, right? I don't really enjoy that sort of stuff. So let's keep moving, shall we? Okay, so it looks like they do showcase like some visual stuff for the costumes, right? I will say the costumes look very, very, very beautiful. You know, I think that first of all, when you take a look at Naga, you know, you take a look at her default basic costume. Her basic one I think is very mediocre and very like lame. Just you know, not really that attractive, not really that pretty, right? And then you know, obviously this new costume is very, very beautiful, very, very you know eye catching, right? And I feel like, you know, a lot of Nikke players, they see these skins and they're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and commit to spending 60 US dollars. Even though it is overpriced, they are very, you know, very hungry for basically just cosmetics and alternative outfits, right? So we have good old Naga here. We have Ein right here. I think Ein's costume, it's definitely not bad. I think it's pretty. And I do think that it is better than her basic default outfit that she has. But I don't think that I would ever pay any money for this. Like, I think that, you know, let's take a look and compare Naga with Ein right here. I feel like, you know, as a Nikke player, right, if you take a look at these costumes, I think it's very obvious. You can, it's plain common sense. You can tell, like, there is definitively a correct answer. You know, there's a yes or a no, and there is a very objectively truthful, you know, I guess, like, yeah, there's a fact that one of these costumes, it looks more attractive and more appealing than the other one, right? And I would say that Naga looks so much better than Ein does with Ein's costume. Which is exactly the reason why this costume here is $20, while the previous one is $60, right? And then last but not least, we have good old Zwei. I think the really funny thing about, you know, this costume here is that, you know, if you speak to any veteran Nikke player out there, the really, really funny thing is that nobody in the game uses Zwei. Zwei is, I think, one of the most useless characters to exist, and she is like, yeah, she's basically an SSR character that you don't really need, and her entire just purpose is, you know, to be collected, right? If you are someone that wants to collect every single Nikke in the game just for collection purposes, that is something that Zwei, you know, is able to do. But beyond being a you know, character that you can look at, that you can just, you know, appreciate their artwork or whatever, using Zwei in combat is basically just not a thing that exists. Like, nobody really uses her at all because she's not really a good character in the game. So I feel like, you know, anyone who pays $20 for this skin, you know, they are obviously a very hardcore fan. They're a hardcore simp of Zwei, but I feel like, in my personal opinion, anybody who spends $20 on this skin is just wasting money. They're a complete idiot, in my personal opinion. But yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and keep going here. Let's see what else that they showcase. This right here, this sort of like animation stuff that they show, it's basically just, you know, showcasing their bursts, which we already got to see, you know, a couple seconds ago, so we don't need to replay that. Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, so this right here is pretty big news, right? In the game of Nikke, there is a thing that was introduced during this past year where essentially what would happen is certain select few Nikke characters that were considered as like sort of like outdated, right? Those Nikke characters, they would receive something called a treasure, right? It's a treasure item. And basically, to simplify what it means, a treasure item is something that you can equip on these select characters, and the treasure item, it will buff them. It will basically provide them with even more benefits, even more abilities and passives and whatever that make them even stronger than they currently are. So, you know, it's kind of like, basically, imagine a, you know, if you think about like in the video game world, right, sometimes there will be an old school, you know, classic, really loved and really popular sort of retro video game, and that video game ends up getting remastered. It ends up getting, you know, completely polished and you know, updated with brand new graphics, and gets re-released as sort of like a brand new game in the modern day and age. That is essentially what is happening with these Nikke characters, right? These Nikke characters, they are a little bit outdated. No one really uses them very much, and they don't really have a very like prominent place in the meta of the game today. So what the developers have done is they have created these treasure items to give to these Nikkes, and by giving these treasure items, you essentially super buff these characters, and you make them even more powerful than they currently are. And you know, now that you give them the treasure item, you can use them in content, and they are very valuable and very, very good quality, right? To give you a very, very great example, or I can give you two great examples, right? So far in Nikke, there are a couple of different characters that have treasure items, right? And there are two of them in particular, two very specific characters where basically before they got the treasure item, right, they were not really that useful. They were very like niche, very specific, and not a lot of people use them, right? And you know, I think that they were not universal characters that you could take onto your team and use them for any content, right? They were not at all meta. So once these characters ended up getting their own unique treasure item, these like two characters that I'm thinking of by the name of Lapis and what's her name? I'm blanking on her name. Exia. Exia, that's her name. I almost said Ein, but it's not Ein. So it's Lapis and Exia. These two characters, they got their own treasure items, right? And right now, Lapis, if you are invested into Lapis, you have leveled up her skills and her burst, and you have her treasure item, she is a very, very, very powerful Iron Code Nikke, right? So if you have like an enemy, if you have a boss that is weak to Iron Code, you can use Lapis, and she is, quite useful, right? She has some place in the meta of the modern, modern scene of Nikke, right? Similarly with Exia, right? Basically nobody ever used Exia in the past, and the reason why is because, from what I remember, Exia is a character where basically her entire role was that she was a burst one character, right? And there was like a couple of things that was problematic about Exia, right? Number one is that Exia as a burst one character did not offer any burst cooldown reduction, which a lot of other burst one characters, they offer it, right? They have it in their build, in their kit. Second of all, right? I think that Exia's like main role was simply just to like mitigate the damage that enemies deal against your Nikkes, and she would also provide like a very like minuscule, very small like damage buff for your entire team, right? But she was, when you take Exia and you compare her to other characters that can do the same thing, right? Her, like the percentages, the numbers, the values that she had when you like level her up and invest into her, it was not as impressive, not as significant as other burst one characters, right? So basically nobody ever used Exia, right? After Exia got her special treasure item, Exia is now essentially one of the most valuable burst one electric code Nikkes that you can have. So, if you are hypothetically running a team that is full of electric DPS characters, that are fighting against an enemy or a boss that is weak to electric, Exia is a fantastic, incredible choice for that team because her treasure item buffed her ability so much that, she is now worth using, right? So these treasure items, they give these outdated characters the opportunity to be in the spotlight again and be used again and be relevant, right? So here we have the character of Helm, right? We have the character of Miranda, Drake, and this is Milk right here. Her name is Milk. I would say that, out of these four characters, I think that Milk is probably the weakest one. Like, without a treasure item, Milk, I think, is quite useless and just like not at all worth running on a team whatsoever. There are far better characters than Milk that exist, right? So I believe that literally nobody uses her in the game ever. Drake is a character where when you are a beginner player, right, when you are just starting out playing Nikke and you don't really have a lot of SSR characters, Drake is a really, really good beginner character, who uses a shotgun. So any sort of, like boss or, content where having a shotgun character is valuable, Drake is a fantastic choice for a new player. But once you start getting more SSR characters and investing into more characters, Drake is a shotgun character that, kind of easily gets replaced. There are better shotgun characters that exist in the game. However, I do think that Drake is still quite useful in very like specific niche circumstances. So I do think that, Drake getting a treasure is going to be very, very, very beneficial, right? Miranda, I think that Miranda is actually decently used in this day and age. I would say the main place that you see Miranda being used would be in the Elysion Manufacturer Tower, right? Because she is basically the best burst one character to use in the Elysion Tower. The only other better option than Miranda would be a character by the name of Sakura, or no, sorry, not Sakura. I'm thinking of a different character. The name of the character is Killer Wife D. That is her name. And the reason why Killer Wife D is the number one best for, Elysion Tower is that Killer Wife D provides burst cooldown reduction, right? And also she is a sniper character, so she is able to generate burst a lot faster than a character like Miranda who uses a submachine gun, right? But I think that, if hypothetically you can use both Miranda and you can use D Killer Wife, that is like not a bad scenario, because basically what you can do is you can utilize Miranda's burst, and instead of bursting with Killer Wife D, you only have Killer Wife D on the team in order to activate her skill 1 and her skill 2, which is where the cooldown reduction comes from, right? But I think that, with the buff that Miranda is going to receive, with her treasure item, I think it will definitely boost her relevancy. And I think that maybe for certain teams, like for example, perhaps you want to form a team that is full of Nikkes that are fire code specifically, since Miranda is a fire code Nikke. If you're facing, content where the boss or the enemies are weak to fire code, having Miranda as the burst one there is not a bad choice whatsoever. And I think that her treasure item is going to make her definitely a lot more popular, a lot more utilized in this modern day and age, right? Last but not least, we have Helm here. I think that Helm is a very interesting character to me personally. The reason why is because I think that basically Helm is a character where she is never really the best choice. She is never really the number one priority pick if you are, clearing certain content in Nikke. However, I think that, if you are looking for sort of like, let's say basically you are creating a team of Nikkes to fight certain content, if you have one slot on the team that is not yet filled, and that you need to pick a fifth last Nikke to fill that slot, I think that Helm is a pretty decent choice, right? Helm is a character that is water code, right? And she's a burst 3 character, and basically her main role on a team is to provide healing, to provide sustainability for your other characters on the team, right? So I think that, like, in all honesty, the main content that you would see Helm being used in would very likely be raids, whether it's like solo raid or union raid, if the boss that you are fighting is weak to water, right? Um, it's the reason why I kind of find Helm to be a very strange, kind of a little bit of a wacky character is, recently during this past, I think the past like 2 weeks, right? Nikke, they had a raid event that was happening. It was a solo raid event. And basically the way that it works is that every individual player, right, they need to create a total of 5 different teams. That means that you need to have 25 total Nikkes that are invested into and that are built, right? And so you use these 5 teams and you fight this boss, and you have to fight the boss, and you have to try to deal as much damage as you possibly can. And the more damage that you deal, the higher the score that you get, right? And the better the rewards that you get, right? The very interesting thing that I, kind of noticed about Helm is that there was, at least one, if not multiple, of the like best Nikke players who were in like the top 3 or the top 5 of the leaderboards in the raid. They were using Helm on one of their 5 teams, and the interesting thing is that the boss that we were all fighting against, right, the solo raid boss, it was a boss that was not weak to water code, right? So the fact that Helm was still being used in the solo raid, I think it just goes to show how I guess just how versatile Helm can be if you don't really have any other better options. You don't have any better choices to go with, right? If you need a burst 3 character that can provide some healing and sustainability for your team, Helm is not really a terrible choice, right? She can work. But yeah, I think that, as I mentioned, with these treasure items, all 4 of these characters here are going to be improved. They're going to be buffed, and they're going to be better than they were before. And maybe all 4 of these characters here are going to become, a part of the, I guess, like, modern day meta in Nikke, and they are going to be, frequently utilized by players. I can't really tell for sure. I think, like, out of these 4 characters, I think Milk is probably the one that I'm most skeptical about, but I think that these 3 characters here, Hel, Miranda, and Drake, they are absolutely going to be a lot more useful and a lot more, utilized by players in upcoming content, right? Where they excel, where they are, very beneficial, very viable, right? So yeah, this is really big news. The one thing that I myself personally am quite happy about is that on my Nikke account, I actually have finished upgrading all of the treasures for the current existing treasure characters, right? I would say that a lot of the other Nikke players, like the ones that I interact with online, they only completed certain Nikkes with their treasures, right? They did not go and finish upgrading every single treasure character's favorite item. So, I basically can walk into this New Year's update completely prepared and ready to immediately start working on one of these characters' treasure items, right? I don't have to finish up an old treasure character before I start on a new one. But yeah, like a lot of the other Nikke players that I speak to, they only completed like maybe 1 or maybe 2 treasure characters so far, and they decided to work on other characters that do not have a special treasure item because basically the way that it works is that in order to get a treasure item, you utilize this very special, unique, mechanic, which is called a commander doll, right? And so you take this doll and you attach it to a Nikke, and you can attach it to any Nikke. It doesn't have to be a Nikke that has a treasure. And the commander doll, it gives that Nikke a buff. It gives them like some small stats, right? It gives them like extra attack or extra ammunition or whatever, right? And so anyone and everyone in Nikke is allowed to have a commander doll attached to them, and you can upgrade the commander doll all the way to level 15, which does take quite a lot of XP. It takes a lot of like resources to get from level 1 to level 15. And basically, a lot of the Nikke players that I speak to, they decided to upgrade the commander doll on Nikkes that do not have treasure items, just because those Nikkes, even without a treasure item, they are very powerful, very special, very worthwhile to invest into. So they did that, and I decided to unlock every single treasure and upgrade every single treasure and finish that. And so now the only thing that I'm doing is I'm sitting here waiting and collecting my materials, collecting my resources, waiting for these 4 new treasures to be released in the game and start working on them. So yeah, I'm quite excited for that, quite happy for that. Okay, let's see here. Let's keep going. I don't really know what this is showcasing here. I probably would be able to look it up. Let me see here. Give me a second, chat. There has to be a an English translation for it. I have no doubt that it was written properly on the English live stream. Oh, is this what it is? Okay, I think I found it. So basically this screen right here, chat, this is talking about a very particular game mode that exists in Nikke, which is called Union Raid, right? And so essentially this is saying that they are introducing a Union Raid hard mode where basically what happens is during a Union Raid, you and all of your teammates, all of your Union members that you are a part of the same group, you all fight against these bosses, and you have to deal damage and kill these bosses, right? All of you work together to do it, right? And so some unions that are very, very, very powerful, they are able to, kill these bosses very quickly, and, like one person in the union can kill one boss, and then another person can kill another boss, right? So, basically that's the overall setup of Union Raid. In the Union Raid hard mode, what they're basically doing is after you complete the normal Union Raid with your members, right? Your union will be grouped together with other unions that completed the raid on the exact same day that your union finished yours, right? And so, you will be kind of grouped together with other unions, and you will then basically compete with these other unions to see which union can deal the most damage and perform the best against the hard mode version of the Union Raid. And then, based on how the union performs, that, determines what rewards you get and how much rewards you get. So yeah. All right, let's see here. What's next after this? Okay, so this one right here. Okay, so this is just basically, I think, talking about, game updates and optimizations, right? So the first one here, it's talking about the simulation room, which is basically the, specific game mode that you need to do every single day in order to get the resources that are used to upgrade skill levels and burst levels for your Nikkes, right? So they are essentially, optimizing the simulation room and making some of the options more simplified and less, complex, less confusing, right? The second optimization here, ooh, nice. Okay, so it's basically talking about how in solo raid, right? What you can basically do. So in solo raid, every single day you are given 3 attempts to clear a solo raid stage, right? You are given 3 attempts to clear the highest difficulty you have available, right? And that means that every single day of solo raid you can get some rewards each day, right? And these rewards are very, very nice, very valuable, very useful, right? The way that it worked, with solo raid is that, okay, so in solo raid there are different difficulty levels, and the difficulty levels goes all the way up to level 7, I believe. I think level 7 is the highest. Once you finish level 7, right, there is the challenge mode that gets unlocked, and the challenge mode is the one that has a leaderboard and it has a ranking. So you are competing against other players to see who can deal the most damage, and then you get rewards in solo raid based off of your performance in the challenge mode, right? However, even though challenge mode is unlocked, right, every single day of solo raid you have the ability to go and replay the difficulty 7 and get rewards from difficulty 7 3 times per day, right? And so it is a way to, basically reward the player for continuously logging in and grinding the game and playing through solo raid content, right? And it gives players a thing to do with solo raid, until the very final day that solo raid is available, right? So that's kind of like the intention, right? You clear difficulty 1 through difficulty 7. Then when you finish with 7, every day after that, you come back to difficulty 7 and you replay it 3 times each day, and you get your rewards and you walk away. Now, in the past, right, the way that it worked is that every day you would have to, open up solo raid and you would have to fight difficulty 7 one time. And then after that one time, you could do something which is called quick battle and you could skip the next 2 attempts and you could just automatically get the rewards because you beat it one time. They know that you can beat it consistently, right? It's not something where it's like, oh, well, you beat it one time. Let's see if you can replicate that 2 more times. You know what I mean? So they added this quick battle feature, this quick battle function, right? It says here that they are going to be optimizing that, which I think what that means is that from now on, when you log into Nikke and you open up solo raid, you do not have to play solo raid one time each day. I think that what they're going to do is you can log into solo raid and you can quick battle stage 7, difficulty 7, all 3 times. You don't have to play it once and then quick battle 2 times. You can quick battle all 3 times and automatically quickly get your rewards. I think that's what they mean. So yeah. All right. Next, it says here, simplify daily missions, reduce completion counts for certain missions, and add more points for some missions. So what they're essentially doing is they are making it to where the process of logging into the game and grinding it daily is not as time consuming and is easier and more, more efficient, more, effective for the player, right? That's really, really good stuff, okay? It also says here, the next kind of bullet point, it says here, New Year's Step Up Recruit returns, recruit an SSR Nikke of your choice. So this is a really, really, really good thing. This is a really massive announcement that is incredible. Basically, for those of you who have never played Nikke before, and especially if you're not someone who played Nikke during the previous New Year's event, there is a Step Up Recruit banner that exists where essentially what happens is you basically spend some gems to pull on a banner, and when you pull on the banner, right, you start at Step Up level 1, and then you go to Step Up level 2 and level 3 and level 4 and so on and so forth, right? As you go through the step up, right, as you pull more and more, the chances of you getting an SSR increase. And there are very specific SSR characters that are kind of like advertised or marketed, where it's like, hey, you can get this really valuable, really cool SSR from pulling on this step up banner, right? And if you have the gems to go all the way to, whatever the highest step is, whether it's like, step 5, step 6 or whatever, if you have all the gems required, then you are able to 100% guarantee that you get the specific SSR character that you are aiming to get, right? Which is really, really, really nice, right? I think like, so if I'm not mistaken, I think during the previous New Year event that I participated in, I think I did the step up banner, and I think I got at least, bare minimum, I think I got at least 2 different SSR characters doing the step up banner, maybe even 3 or 4. And it was something where like, if you actually sit down and you do the calculations where you calculate how many gems it costs and what are the chances of getting a reward and the probabilities and RNG and all that stuff, right? The step up banner is actually so incredibly worth it. The value of what you're getting out of it by spending your gems on it, it is incredibly, incredibly super useful and worthwhile, right? And I think that it is one of the best limited banners that you could invest into because it will pay off, right? So this is really, really big news. This is a really awesome, amazing announcement that they, are talking about here. The very last, kind of bullet point here that is on this screen, it's not really something that matters at all because basically it simply just concerns people who, pull out their credit card and they swipe on the game, they spend money on Nikke. It basically is just mentioning that people who swipe on Nikke, they will get the chance to basically get more resources, more materials and whatever, with the money that they spend, right? So if you think about like that sort of concept in the terms of like Genshin or Honkai Star Rail, for example, in these other gacha games, there's this thing called like a top up bonus or whatever, right? Where you get like supposedly when you top up for like the very first time, you get like an extra amount of gems or crystals or whatever other name of currency you can think of, right? That is basically what this final announcement is talking about. It's just simply saying that the people who spend money on Nikke, you will be able to get more materials, more resources for the money that you spend. That's literally all it is. And no, that particular last bullet point there, it does not apply to me. I don't spend money on resources in Nikke. I'm a completely free to play player when it comes to that. So yeah, and then let's see here. This right here, I think basically what this is saying, I can pull up the English translation, but it says here basically you can get more than 100 free recruits or basically banner pulls through the New Year's event, right? So it says from December 29th to January 3rd, right? You get a mail reward, so you get more than 30 banner pulls in the mail, right? December 26th, right? You have the New Year version event update. You get at least, right, a bare minimum of 55 banner pulls, right? From January 1st to January 7th, you get daily mission bonus rewards and double rewards in Interception and Simulation Room. And then you can also get, it says here, for more event rewards, including 20 or more recruits, please follow the official community social media, right? Yeah. So basically, this is just outlining all of the potential free banner pulls that you can get your hands on if you play Nikke during the time of the New Year's update, right? Which is really really nice, really wonderful stuff. I am always going to celebrate, you know, free banner pulls and whatnot. Um, okay, so this next part of the live stream is kind of more just talking with the different developers of Nikke, and I don't really care that much about that section. They're kind of just like sort of giving explanations on you know, why they decided to design certain things in certain manners in the game, right? And I don't really feel like it's worth listening to, it's worth reacting to. We can just skip over that stuff and get to the important announcements, right? So, this next section, basically what it is that this next section is talking about a future collaboration event that Nikke is going to have in 2025. And it's going to be announcing what the collaboration is and what the characters are going to look like in the collaboration. So let's take a look and see what they showcase here. Yep, so there we go, chat. As you can see here, Goddess of Victory Nikke is going to be having a collaboration with Evangelion. For anyone out there who, you know, does not play Nikke, right, they are unfamiliar with the game, basically during this past year, right, during 2024, Nikke did a collaboration with Evangelion. They actually released some Evangelion characters into Nikke. And the really, really funny thing is, right, I remember after the collaboration ended, right, it disappeared, there was like an official announcement, like an official like press release from the developers from Shift Up, right? Where they literally they said this, you know, this is not something where I am you know, fabricating the words and I'm making it up or whatever. They legitimately 100% fully admitted that the Evangelion collaboration that they did in 2024, it was not successful. It was a failure, and the result of the collaboration, like the amount of money that they earned, the amount of profit that they got, um, it was a lot lower than what they were expecting, than what they had hoped to earn. And so they were like, yeah, the Evangelion collaboration was not good, and we are going to basically reevaluate future collaborations after, you know, seeing the results of this Evangelion event, right? Basically, I think what happened here, this is, you know, kind of the thought process that a lot of the, you know, Nikke players, a lot of them have, and when they explained it, you know, to me in this manner, it made a lot of sense, right? Basically, I think that what happened is Nikke, they decided to basically enter into a deal or an agreement with the Evangelion franchise, and they were like, hey, Evangelion, we want to do a collaboration with you. Would you be willing to work with us? And Evangelion, they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it, right? Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe Evangelion approached Shift Up, right? But however it happened, I think what occurred is that basically there was a contract, there was a deal that was signed where Nikke, Shift Up, they agreed that they would do an Evangelion collaboration event in 2024, and then they would do another Evangelion collaboration in 2025, right? So I think that basically they signed this contract, they signed this deal to do one collaboration in 2024 and another one in 2025, right? And I think that what happened is, you know, after the collaboration in 2024, they analyzed it. You know, they looked at the results of it and they were like, oh, this was not good. This was not successful. And so they were like, this is bad news, right? However, because they made this deal, because they made this contract, they could not cancel the 2025 collaboration. They were like, we have to go through with it. We have to honor the deal. We have to honor the contract. And we have to do another collaboration with Evangelion in 2025, right? So what just now was being shown, apparently, you know, I don't know what, like, how true this is, but I think that the majority of the Nikke players, they believe that this is the case. Apparently, all of the Evangelion characters that were showcased within the past, like, you know, minute or 2 minutes or whatever of the video, all of those characters are going to be separate, individual, new characters in Nikke, right? It's not going to be like, oh, they're releasing an alternative outfit or an alternative skin for these pre-existing Evangelion characters, right? What this means is that in Nikke, okay, there are basically 3 Evangelion characters that exist in Nikke right now. There is Asuka, there's Rei, and there is Mari, right? Those are the three characters that exist in Nikke that people use, people play, right? What they're going to be doing is in 2025, they are going to be releasing a second separate individual version of Asuka, a second character of Asuka. They're going to be releasing a second character of Rei, and very likely a second character of Mari as well. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I did see Mari there. So yeah, what that means is that there's going to be two Asukas in the game, there's going to be two Reis in the game, and two Maris in the game. If my understanding is not misinformed, right? So yeah, that is basically what this announcement is. Now, I want to kind of take a moment to give my thoughts and opinions on this thing, right? For those of you out there who don't know, I have never watched Evangelion. I've never seen any of the anime. I've never read any of the manga, right? I know nothing about Evangelion. All I know about the franchise is that basically the main protagonist character, who I believe his name is Shinji, right? He seems to be a pathetic wimp. He seems to be a loser, right? And I have seen a lot of memes about Evangelion, and the main thing that I know about Evangelion in terms of its story is that, you know, it is a very weird, bizarre, wacky story that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it's not really a very like logical and very like, you know, comprehensible story, right? I think that it is a story where instead of, you know, telling something that makes sense and that, you know, like basically smoothly flows and tells some kind of a story, some kind of a plot. I think that Evangelion seems to be like this anime, seems to be the story where, you know, the main purpose of it is to make you feel some kind of emotion, right? And that's it. That's the entire reason it exists, right? Um, I've never, ever had any sort of interest, any sort of desire to read or to watch Evangelion. I don't really care about that franchise at all. It doesn't mean anything to me, and nothing about it interests me. Nothing about it appeals to me, right? So when the 2024 collaboration happened with Evangelion, I ended up only pulling for one of the characters by the name of Mari, because Mari is a very universal character. She can be used on any team and for any content, right? Meanwhile, the other two characters, Asuka and Rei, they were characters where basically you would use them in very specific situations, very specific like solo or union raids, and outside of like solo raid or union raid, you would basically never use them. Like you don't really use them in the main campaign of the game. You don't really use them in like the towers, right? Because you can't. You don't really use them in like simulation room or interception or anything like that. You mainly just use them for solo raid or union raid. That's it. And so I thought to myself, I was like, you know, I would rather save my gems. I would rather wait until the future banners come out, because there's going to be very likely better characters who are more, you know, versatile, more flexible, more adaptable, and more universal than these collaboration characters that seem to be a little bit too niche for my preferences, right? So I skipped Asuka and I skipped Rei, and I only have Mari. I honestly don't regret my decision. I really don't. There is some content in Nikke, like for example, I can talk about this. In Nikke, there's a game mode called Interception, where basically this is how you get the equipment. So if you think about, you know, Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail, you know how with your characters, you can basically take these artifacts, or you can take these, you know, particular, you know, like let's talk about Wuthering Waves, right? Wuthering Waves, you have echoes, which is the equivalent of artifacts in Genshin Impact. You can take these items, these artifacts or these echoes or whatever you want to call them, and you can equip them on your character. You can attach them to your character, and they provide stats to your character. They buff your character, right? In Nikke, the equivalent of that is basically called equipment, right? And you know, some people call them equipment, some people call them gear, right? And so you can get these equipment, you can get these gear from playing Interception, right? And you know, the higher level that you are, the more damage that you can deal, the better the gear that you can potentially get, right? Right now in Nikke, there is one particular boss in the Interception that you can use the character known as Asuka. You can use Asuka against this particular boss, and she is very effective, and she's very powerful, very strong against that boss. And so like for that boss, when I am fighting that boss, I don't have Asuka, and therefore, you know, I don't get to benefit as much as the other players who do have Asuka, and they can use her against this boss, right? So that is like, you know, a disadvantage that I have, and it's something where like, you know, if I owned Asuka, I would probably be able to perform better against that particular boss fight. However, outside of that, I don't really care that much that I'm missing Asuka or that I'm missing Rei. And, you know, therefore, as I mentioned, I don't really regret the choice that I made, right? I'm quite happy with it. So now, as you can see here, they are rerunning Evangelion for a second time, and they are adding newer, different versions of Asuka, Rei, and Mari. I think it's very obvious, I think it's very common sense that I myself am not excited at all. I don't really care about this collaboration, and I don't really care about these new updated versions of the Evangelion characters. It doesn't matter to me. I have no interest in it. I have no desire or motivation to pull for those characters. I think what I'm probably just going to end up doing is I'm going to talk with, the other fellow Nikke players that, I trust, who have a lot of knowledge with the game, and I'm going to be like, hey, tell me which of these Evangelion characters I need to pull for. And if I don't need to pull for them, I'm very likely going to skip them. I'm very likely just going to forget about them and ignore them, pretend they don't exist. Yeah, I feel like this particular collaboration event right here, it is something that is just, it's not exciting. It's not interesting. It's not cool, anything like that. I think it's just like, it's a way to basically get the Evangelion, super fans, right? The fanboys, the fangirls, the simps, to spend their money on Nikke. That's literally all it is. And considering that when they did this collaboration in 2024, Shift Up, they officially announced saying that the collaboration was an overall failure, right? I really wonder how it's going to turn out when they do it again in 2025. I'm very curious to see what happens. But yeah. So that is one kind of big announcement that they, have done here. I think they also do have another one here. Let me see here. Yeah. There we go. I remember this. Yep. There we go, baby. Nikke and Stellar Blade. For those of you out there who don't know about this, I mean, I think it's pretty common information, but the developers of Nikke, it's a company called Shift Up, they are actually the ones that also created the game called Stellar Blade, which is a PlayStation exclusive game right now. And, for those of you who don't know what Stellar Blade is, it is essentially a game that is very heavily inspired and heavily influenced by the very infamous franchise called Nier Automata, right? Stellar Blade is essentially this sort of like, action RPG type game, very, similar in terms of vibe to Nier Automata. And it is kind of like a game that, one of the purposes of the game is to honor Nier Automata and to show love to Nier Automata, because Nier Automata was such a, an amazing, incredible game that had such a massive, significant impact on the gaming community, right? So Stellar Blade is basically a modern day, new version of Nier Automata created by a Korean game development company, right? And so yeah, Shift Up, the company that created Goddess of Victory Nikke, they are also the developers for Stellar Blade, and it is only expected, right? It's very common sense, very obvious that they would do some sort of a, collaboration, some sort of a tie-in between both of these two games, right? I would say that my personal feeling about this particular collaboration is that I am right now very cautiously optimistic, right? I am really hoping that the Stellar Blade collaboration is really, really good, and I'm hoping that it's successful. I hope that it's so much better than Evangelion, because, Stellar Blade is actually a game that I really, really, really want to play. I think it looks incredible, and I think that, it seems to be a very fun, very entertaining game. The only reason why I have not played it is just because I do not own a PlayStation, and I will never be buying one. So I basically just have to wait and see if Stellar Blade is going to be released on PC, and if it is going to be released on PC, I will absolutely be trying it out. I will be buying it, and I will be playing it at some point. But yeah, I am cautiously optimistic. I'm really, crossing my fingers, hoping and praying that this Stellar Blade collaboration ends up being successful. Because, I will fully admit, right? There is something about games like Stellar Blade and Nier Automata, where I really find it to be appealing and attractive, right? If I were to try and describe this in the most like simplified and perhaps safe manner that I could describe it, basically the character known as 2B in the Nier Automata franchise is a character that I find to be very extremely pretty and beautiful and attractive, right? I really, really like her design. And people out there who have played Nier Automata or even are familiar with it, even if you just know about the franchise, you will very likely know one of the big reasons why a lot of people like her character, right? And Stellar Blade has that same sort of character design, right? And with a game like Goddess of Victory Nikke, I think that Nikke is a very, very, very well designed video game. I think it's incredibly good quality, right? And I think it's absolutely worth playing. That being said, there is an aspect of Nikke that I think a lot of people, when they hear the name Nikke, right? When they hear the name of the game, they have this automatic association where they think of this, right? Basically, I think that it's kind of known in the video game community that Goddess of Victory Nikke, it is a game that has plenty of fan service, plenty of basically just hot anime waifus, right? And Goddess of Victory Nikke is not really afraid of basically showing off a little bit of skin, a little bit of some teasing of the characters, right? And so with that information in mind, I think that Stellar Blade being in collaboration with Nikke, putting the Stellar Blade characters into Nikke, it is kind of a perfect fit, and it makes sense. It's very logical, and I am very cautiously optimistic. I'm very, hopeful that it'll look really good, and it'll be very, very appealing, very attractive, right? But yeah. I will reserve my judgment until we get closer to the, time when the collaboration does happen, right? Is there anything else that they talk about after this? Let's see. I think this stuff here, if I'm not mistaken, this stuff here is like merchandise, basically. That's all it really is, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, so they're talking about how, like, I think in Japan or in some other location they're gonna have a Nikke booth at some convention, very likely. They have all this merchandise. All of it looks very cute, very adorable, and very lovely. But since I am not located in Japan and I'm not located in like Southeast Asia and whatever, I won't be able to buy any of this stuff, We've got, what else do we have here? Looks like we've got some freeing, figures, right? We've got Bay and we've got Clay here, two Nikkes in the game. Um, I think that these statues, right? They don't look too bad at all. I think my biggest concern is that one, both of these statues are 1/4 size, which is not bad, but that means that it's going to be quite expensive. And not only that, but the company that is, designing or not designing, but like sort of manufacturing and producing these figures is Freeing, and Freeing is known as a company that basically the price of their figures is extremely high, and they are very well known to overprice certain figures that should not be overpriced just because the figure is from like a very popular, very famous, very well known brand, So that kind of has me a little bit worried. I'm not gonna lie. All right, chat. Let's keep moving on, shall we? After these, particular Bay and Clay figurines that were announced, what else is there being shown? We've got some stickers here, it looks like. Very cute, very adorable. Seems like they will be available on Discord and using the Line Messenger app, which is something that I think is primarily existing in Asian countries rather than in, the US and the Western countries. Yeah, other than that, it's basically just announcing different kind of in-person IRL events that are going to be happening. Unfortunately, I can't attend any of those because I don't live in, Japan or any Southeast Asian country. What else here? Is there anything else that we have missed out on? Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Seems like all of these are IRL things. This is, I'm assuming, a part of some kind of a giveaway, is what I'm guessing. Um, and yeah, I think that's basically it, chat. Let me see here. Okay, so this is I think what they're doing here is they're doing some sort of a kind of like a skit type thing where they are spinning a wheel to see what rewards all of the different Nikke players will get from this live stream. And unsurprisingly, at the very end of it, we end up getting basically every single reward here. So I believe this is 10 free pulls and some upgrade materials, some tickets, and some items, right? So yeah, this code right here, Nikke Christmas Party, you type it into the good old game, the Redemption Center, and you get all of these rewards here. So that's pretty nice. And I think that's basically it, chat. I think there's really not much else. I suppose we can probably watch the cinematic that should be playing pretty soon here, and then after that, it might be completely over with. Yeah, I think that is all.
ドアを開けるべきはそれはもちろん指揮官様でしょ指揮官様師匠指揮官メリークリスマス
Oh, that's very adorable. Very, very adorable. Alright, chat. Alright. It seems like there's nothing else left for this particular live stream here. Seems like we've gone over basically every single thing that is going to be, appearing in the Nikke New Year's version update. I am very, very, very excited about this. I cannot wait. And yeah, I really hope that I'm able to, get pretty lucky with my banner pulls and get a very nice brand new Rappy character. But yeah, I'm extremely, extremely excited about what is coming up in terms of content, right? I think that there was a lot of really cool things announced. One of the big things that I don't even know if it was talked about in this live stream. I feel like it should have been talked about. I'm trying to see here if like maybe I accidentally skipped over it, but I will go ahead and describe it to you, while I search through this little video here. Basically, let me see. So we have like the treasure section here. Oh yes, here we go. So I did, I think, accidentally skip over it. This right here is one last final thing that I forgot to mention in terms of like sort of like a quality of life update. So basically in Nikke, right, there are there are limited banners that are released where, you know, for a certain period of time you can pull on this banner and potentially get the featured character, right? There is also the permanent standard banner that is available in the game, and basically the way that that works is that any character who is not, not specifically labeled as a limited character, right? And so limited characters typically are ones that are seasonal, for example. Like, for example, the summer Nikkes are limited and the winter Nikkes are limited, right? And those Nikkes, they are not available outside of the season that they have their banners, right? Um, Basically, any character that is not a limited character, right? They are basically put into the permanent standard banner after they initially release, right? So they initially release and they have their own, special banner where they're featured, and then after that they are added into the available pool of permanent standard banner characters, right? And the really cool thing about Nikke that I really appreciate, I really like this, and I wish that, I wish that like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, I wish that they had something similar, right? I think that Wuthering Waves does have something like this, maybe, possibly, but I could be mistaken. Basically, in Nikke, right, with the permanent standard banner, the way that it works is that for every single manufacturer, right, for Tetra, for Elysion, for Missilis, basically like for the manufacturers, right, you are able to select 5 Nikkes for each manufacturer to put on something called a wish list, right? And so what that means is that basically, with the permanent standard banner, right, you will have a small selection of SSR characters that you specifically choose that you want, right? And so these SSR characters are available in the permanent banner, and you can pull one of these SSR characters. And then, of course, like with those SSR characters, there's also SR characters and there's R characters, right? It's not only SSRs. But what this basically does is the wishlist system in Nikke, it will allow you to customize the permanent standard banner and make sure that you do not get an SSR character that you do not want, that you do not specifically desire, and you select as a part of the wish list, right? So any Nikke that is not on the wish list, they will not be included in the permanent standard banner, and you cannot get them when you, spend your gems, right? Spending your resources, you will only end up potentially getting an SSR character that you actually want and you actually desire, right? Now, I know that I said that, every single manufacturer is, available on the wish list. Like I mentioned that for each manufacturer, you get to select 5 Nikkes. Before this New Year's update, before New Year's 2025, every single manufacturer except for Pilgrims was available on the wish list. So you cannot get any Pilgrim character in the permanent standard banner. They're just not available. They 0% chance of pulling one, right? And that was, I think, one of the I think one of the big reasons why a lot of people out there, they do not want to pull on the standard banner. They prefer to pull on limited banners, and that's where they like to allocate their resources, right? Um, Now, I mean, obviously it's in Japanese on the screen here, but basically you can see that from the visual, right? Starting New Year 2025, pilgrims are going to be available to wishlist on the permanent standard banner, which is incredible. That is amazing. That is such a massive quality of life improvement and upgrade, without a doubt. Because yeah, like let me tell you, so a lot of the pilgrims in the game, I am very, fortunate, very lucky that a lot of the good ones are the ones that I have multiple copies of. However, there are a couple of Nikkes that I only have like one copy of, and I want to get multiple copies of that pilgrim, right? So this wishlist system is going to be massive. And what it's going to do is it's going to basically persuade more and more players to, want to spend their gems and their tickets on the standard banner and make it more valuable, right? And I think that, probably the group of people that get to benefit the most from this update is brand new Nikke players, right? And to kind of explain why, in Nikke, the way that it works is that when you are a brand new player, you have a goal that you need to reach and you need to surpass this goal, right? The goal is that you need to get 5 SSR characters max limit broken. And the reason why this is the case is that if you do not get 5 max limit broken SSR characters, the maximum level that you can upgrade your characters to is level 160, right? When you get 5 SSR characters max limit broken, you then basically break that barrier and you now can upgrade your characters to level 200. And then once you reach level 200, you can go even higher than that, and you can upgrade to level 250, 300, 350, 400, so on and so forth, right? So getting 5 SSR characters max limit broken, it is this long-term goal that you have when you start playing the game at the very beginning, and eventually you want to reach that goal, you want to surpass it by the time that you gather enough resources to level up your 5 SSR characters to level 160, right? By that time, you ideally want to have max limit broken 5 of them in total so that you can continue going higher than 160, right? Um, for me personally, right, I think that I had a little tiny bit of an easier time with the level 160 obstacle. And the reason why is because I was not afraid to pull on the standard banner. I would spend my gems and also my standard banner tickets to try and get as many copies of 5-star characters as I could. Meanwhile, a lot of other Nikke players, they preferred to spend their gems primarily on limited banners where there is not really a guarantee that they're going to be getting a duplicate copy of a character that they need for the 160 obstacle, right? The great thing, as I mentioned, about the permanent standard banner is the wishlist system, where you can basically take the total available SSRs and you can shrink the amount of them to only a select few. I believe in total, like before this New Year's update, it was, I think, you could pick a total of 20 SSR characters to potentially pull on the permanent standard banner, right? And you would have a chance of getting an SSR or an R or an SR character, right? So, by shrinking the available pool of Nikkes from, let's say, hypothetically, I don't know, 60 Nikkes or 50 Nikkes or whatever, down to 20, you are increasing the chances that you are able to get basically the same 5 Nikkes and getting duplicate copies for each one of them, right? And it speeds up your progress and it allows you to overcome that 160 obstacle faster, right? And so that's what I did. And I feel like looking back, I do not regret that. Basically in my Nikke journey, there has only ever been one character that I skipped their banner and I did not get them the first time around. And I kind of sort of regret that a little tiny bit. But other than that one character, any other character that I've wanted, I've been able to pull for them, without lacking resources, without, having to swipe my credit card, right? And so looking back, I am so incredibly thankful and grateful that I did spend my resources on the standard banner. And so, with this particular change, where they are now adding the ability to get, valuable pilgrim characters on the permanent standard banner, this is going to motivate and persuade people, including newer players, to spend more on the standard banner. And therefore, this will have an effect of allowing people to, get through that 160 level barrier faster, right? And it'll allow them to, I think, enjoy the game more and, progress through content at a smoother pace, right? So yeah. This is absolutely a very, very huge quality of life upgrade, a very huge improvement, and I cannot wait for it. I think that I probably know which 5 pilgrim characters that I'm going to select. But one of the really cool things, you can actually take a look and see it here on the left side of the screen, the brand new Elysion and also pilgrim character Rappi, the SSR Rappi character, is going to be available as a part of that wishlist system after her banner disappears from the game, which is really, really nice. Really nice. It allows any person who potentially may not be able to get SSR Rappi, it allows that person to not miss out and not be completely just locked out of getting something so valuable. But yeah, no. Overall, I really, really, really like this live stream. I think that Shift Up, they knocked it out of the park, and they did a fantastic job. I love all of these updates. I love all of these improvements. They are really, really, benefiting the players, and they are really, really allowing the players to have a fun time with the New Year's update, and I can't wait for it. I think that this is not really a very important question. This is not really a very meaningful or significant question, but if you were to ask me the question of what exactly are you most excited for in terms of New Year's 2025, right? I think what I would probably say is that my excitement for Genshin Impact version 5.3 is probably at the top of the list. And then in second place, very, very, very close behind, I'm extremely excited for Nikke, New Year's update, right? And then after Nikke, in third place, I would say Wuthering Waves version 2.0. I'm excited for that. But yeah, no, my level of hype and excitement for Nikke and for Genshin is roughly about equal. Roughly about equal. I think that Genshin maybe is a little bit more excitement. But yeah, Nikke does not fall far behind. It does not. Yeah, as I mentioned, earlier in this little video here, if anyone out there basically does not know about Nikke, you know, you've never played it before, maybe you've heard of it before, but you've never played it before, I really, really, truly do think that anyone and everyone should play this game. I think that it's an incredible video game in terms of quality that people can enjoy, people of all ages and all demographics, right? And yeah, I would highly recommend it because, you know, I think that this game is not simply just a very, you know, low quality anime waifu game. This is a video game that has pretty decently good story. It has a lot of really enjoyable, really fun, really challenging gameplay, and you know, I think it has a good substantial amount of basically like I would say very well appreciated fan service that the players really love and they enjoy and they're very happy with it, right? So yeah, I highly recommend Nikke to all of you out there. Feel free to check out the game if you want to. If not, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to basically, you know, record this video, take this opportunity to talk about a game that I personally am passionate about, that I really care about, that I really love. And I can't wait for January 2025. That's going to be an amazing month for gacha games in general. But yeah, that's going to be all for me today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this lengthy video, and I hope to see you guys in the next video or live stream. All right, peace out, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.